So Dan, we've never had you on our show before, but I ran into you this morning and said, "Hey, we got a spot open. Why don't you come sit down with us?" And you're here. Tell us about yourself and your charter.
Double D Sport Fishing. I'm out of the Port of Rochester.
Okay.
Um, uh, April through into September, brown
Okay.
trout, salmon, steelhead, the typical stuff.
How long you been doing that?
I've been professionally chartering for 3 years, but I've been fishing the Great Lakes and doing this stuff since the early to mid 80s.
Yeah. How'd you get started?
Just had a drive for fishing, and I started off fishing off the piers and started to catch these fish as they were prevalent in the Lake Ontario when the alewife boom was going on, and it just grew from there. And getting a boat and gradually working my way up.
Did you have a mentor, or were you kind of self-taught? How did that go?
It was pretty much self-taught as far as the fishing and the hunting. It just was a drive and something that I'd love to do, and my father, my family really wasn't into it. It was just the passion I had, and I kind of.
Tell me about that learning curve. How do you go about learning just basically from scratch by yourself? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that see what you guys do and they're like, I want to do that, but they don't really know where to get started. They don't know how to really learn. How do you do that?
Well, again, it's the drive, it's the passion. So you know, a lot of reading, a lot of. Well, back in my day, it was magazines you're reading. Now there's social media, YouTube, that kind of stuff. Getting out there, trial and error, and going on some fishing charters with some captains is where you're going to glean a lot of the information, because it's just going to bring your learning curve way up when you could see hands-on. And all these captains of, there's no secrets to this. You come out on a trip and we're going to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what the process is. So
that's one thing about the Lake Ontario captains is most guys are willing to share information and teach. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Everybody wants to know. And, you know, like you talk to Lake Erie guys and they're catching it on a perch colored stick bait and they tell you they're using blue, purple. Oh, no, it's, you know, but it's just, it seems a little different. You know, Lake Ontario guys are like, look, there's a lot of fish. There's a lot of water.
Fish, exactly.
We want everybody to catch fish.
Yeah.
We don't want any bad reputation. You know, it's like, hey, go with me, go with him.
Right.
You're gonna catch fish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You know, I live I live in the Minnesota area, and we've got this walleye fishery there that is everyone's very protective of what they're doing because they don't want a bunch of people showing up on their spot. They don't want a bunch of people fishing out a particular lake. But when we're talking about salmon in the Great Lakes, it's like, well, that fish is going to die in 4 years anyway, so somebody's got to go out and kill it. It might as well be you know.
Right.
So it's just a very different attitude towards the fishery and what's there, and that these fish regenerate, and that's what they do, and that's how they are. So it is fun talking to you guys, just in that most of the people that we talk to are pretty much open book when we talk about what you're doing out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell me about the Port of Rochester. What's it like fishing out of there?
It's a great port. There's a lot to offer. We got great brown trout fishing in the spring, even into the summer. Central location. We just have it all there. Steelhead, salmon, good fishery in the summer. We got to run a little bit further than some of these other ports because we're in the basin, but that is what I would say would be the only downfall. And it's not to the other fishermen or customers. It's just we got to run a little further and spend a little more on gas, but the guys are all good, and we're going to take you out and bring you where the fish are.
So how does it set up when you're coming out? How far do you usually run to get to the water you want to fish? And what kind of depths are you fishing?
Well, it depends. We start out in the spring, and we're going to be fishing. Could be 6 to 12 foot of water. And we're going to do the brown trout. If you're coming out of the river, we're either going to go east, we're going to head down towards Webster, or we're going to go the other way and head down past Grease and Braddock's, and both probably some of the best brown trout fishing spots on the whole lake. And then as things start to transition, we're going to start moving out further, and we're going to get out 100 foot, 200 foot, and then we get into July and August, and we could be out into 600 foot in the shipping lanes and fishing off Scotch bonnet, gap out there.
Mm-hmm.
But we just kind of follow where the fish are.
Okay. Tell me about your boat. What are you running for a boat?
I am running a 27-foot Tierra Pursuit, um, fully rigged with fish hawk, and
Yeah.
which can't say enough about. Love it. Have the Canon Optima downriggers. Everything's all Bluetooth. I don't have to look at the front of the boat anymore. It's
Right.
just all right there. But yeah, so it's a well set up ride. Handles the water well, and working out really well.
What is your like summer program look like?
As far as salmon,
Yeah, if you're gonna go fishing for kings on a July day, what does your typical setup look like?
I will typically, normally, that time of year we'll be going offshore,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be running probably 4 riggers. I just run 2 divers. I don't do the double divers, and I'll run my coppers off my boards, and then that's my spread, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll cover the water column, kind of find temperature obviously with your fish hawk, and see where things are, and I'll run a lot of meat program, good paddles, stuff off the diver, stuff off the copper.
Mm-hmm.
Spoons have been hot the past couple of years though, so I don't sleep on those either.
Yeah. What do you like for spoons?
Don't have an allegiance to any one particular. It's like what's working, but honestly, Route 19 Jonathan over there is putting out some really nice patterns and spoons, and
Mm-hmm.
been running a lot of his stuff, still some Greenleafers and Michigan Stingers and whatnot. And I know a lot of the captains, they have to have a variety of stuff out there, but I am more of the mindset, fish are hitting something, I'm going to flood the zone. I've been known to have 4 of the same rig out there,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're telling me what they want. The baby wants to eat peas. I'm not going to try and feed it carrots. I'm going to put some more peas out there. It's been my motto, so it's kind of.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I'm running 5 spoons on my riggers, and if it's just high divers and spoons, sometimes there's 7 of the same spoon on there.
Yeah.
If they want it, feed it to them.
Right. I don't.
Why try this and that? And well, if that one keeps going, just give it to them.
It's not a game. We don't get extra bonus points if we make them eat something different. So
No.
let's catch fish.
No,
They want that.
Keep
get
it simple.
Yes.
Don't make them eat a fly if they want a spoon.
Correct.
Well, FLX Adventures chimes in and says your boat is gorgeous. So must be somebody from the port of Rochester
Yeah.
that knows you. So they stopped in to say that they're a big fan of the boat.
I am meticulous with it, and I keep it up and clean, and it's my baby. So
Yeah, I love that. It's fun walking through a marina and you see a wide variety. You see the guys that are out there running, like 1982 boats, and they look really nice. And then you walk up to the next guy, and he's got a 10-year-old boat. There's just crap laying all over in it, and it's just funny going through and seeing just how different everyone kind of does things a little bit differently, and how boats are handled.
yeah.
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 Are you a clean boat guy,
I'm a
Matt?
clean boat guy.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if there's a pile of spoons, they need to be organized. Sometimes I run scent on my spoons in the morning or when the water's green, early in the season when it's thick and cold. Yeah, I got to clean those scents off. And the ones I scent, I put in a certain pile, belly down, so they're not, making everything else slimy. Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said earlier, most charter captains have a little bit of OCD.
Yeah.
And some have a lot of bit of
Yeah.
OCD.
Yes.
Dan, I heard you say flood the zone. Are you a football guy?
I like to watch football.
All right. I didn't know
But
if
I'm
maybe
not
you
a
were a
Bills
coach
fan,
or something.
Full disclosure. So
All right. Who's your team?
the Dolphins, believe it or
The
not.
Dolphins.
Yeah.
All right.
Not good, but it's okay.
Yeah. I'm sure you were a child of the '80s and probably loved Dan Marino.
Child of the 70s, or the last time they won a Super Bowl, really. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I was born in Pittsburgh, so
yeah.
the Bills are my second team.
All right.
I'm a Steelers fan.
Yeah, you're a transplant here, so
right.
you kind of have to like them. And I grew up in Illinois, so it was like nobody could like the Packers. But then I moved to Wisconsin, and I've got Wisconsin wife and kids who grew up in Wisconsin, so I have to like not hate the Packers, although it's been bred into me by growing up in Illinois.
Fan and heart.
I actually, so we talked about Marino. I grew up watching John Elway, and that was like who I idolized. So I ended up
So
being
you
a
were
Broncos fan,
okay.
which is weird, but I'm a weird guy. So.
Eh,
Let's talk some fishing though. Tell me about one of your more memorable days in the water. What's kind of if we were to run into each other at the bar and I said, give me a good story about fishing, whether it's with clients or maybe just when you were out fishing on your own. What's a day that you or a story that you think of often?
I mean, you could almost name most of the days this past summer because the
Yeah.
fishing was just so great. I have a lot of fun. I fish by myself a lot. If I don't have trips and I'm freed up, I'll take that boat out and I'll fish it by myself. And just being out, especially offshore and fishing out there and, hooking into a 20 some odd pound king and by yourself and fighting it and getting gear out of the way and netting that fish by yourself. I live for that stuff. It's just
Yeah.
outstanding. Yeah.
Tell me about that. How do you do that? So let's say you get one of your long coppers, and you've got all the other stuff set up right around the boat, and you're out there by yourself. How are you managing that rod?
It's like a chess match and it's different every time. You got to take the temperature of the fish, see what's going on, get some gear out of the way. Now I'm by myself, so typically, there's just going to be 3 rods. So that's in my favor to begin with. I don't have enough. It's just depending on what's going on. Rarely when I'm fishing by myself, unless there's just a super copper bite going on, will I run the coppers by myself.
Yep.
It'll be either a 1 diver and 2 rigger spread or a 1 rigger and a 2 diver spread. And
so it's just more manageable.
Yeah, that's the tricky part is when they're on that diver rod, and I run probably too long of leads off of my divers than I should, and it's a lot of playing the fish and hand lining and having the net ready and set up, and I went for many years and didn't have any problems, and then it must have been 3 summers ago, I lost 2 nets in 1 week by fish getting a little rambunctious on me and setting it down wrong and into the water. But since then, it's all been good. So I just kind of have a system where I've done it and kind of going to have to hand line. If they start to get a little feisty, you just got to let it go. And they're just kind of
let it do its thing.
Yeah.
And you're just, I guess you're only working around 2 other rods with only 3 lines in. I was trying to wrap my head around. I'm like, well, you got 6 lines. You're not gonna have 6 lines up.
Only allowed 3.
Yeah, right. Only allowed 3. So not as much messing around. Matthew was with us a lot yesterday. He's got a question. Under stable conditions, how far down are you typically finding temperature throughout the summer out of Rochester?
Well, again, it's all going to, there's no cut and dry answer. It's going to depend on the wind and, and what's going on. How deep offshore we are. We could be 70 foot down. We could be 110 foot down. It just fluctuates, and that's where your product is valuable to what we do because it lets us know.
Yeah.
Okay, temperature today. Well, yesterday it was at 80. Now it's at 95 today, and we got to move our stuff down and search that temperature out.
Yep. And if it's one of those things too, Matthew, if you're just getting started and maybe you don't have the money to invest in a full system, check out that Fishhawk TD because that's going to give you that temperature data. You can just drop it down, bring it back up, and you've got that data at your fingertips. And it's going to cost you a fraction of what a regular system will cost, but it gets you in the zone as far as that finding out what that temperature is.
We live and die by the temperature of the water. And you're close enough to the west end that on a northeast blow, the temperature might be 30 feet down when you get out there. The surface might only be, it's July 4th, right? Everybody's suntan, it's hot. You go out of the pier heads and it's 42 degrees at the pier head. You're like, now what do I do?
Right.
Well, if you're looking for 42-degree water, it's on the surface.
Right.
Right. So if you go out to 60, 80 feet of water, that 42 might only be 30 feet down and then it's 39 down. So, you know, the TD gets you there, the regular fish hawk, there's lots of products, but live and die by that water temperature
Right.
could be 30 feet down in early July, mid-July
Yeah.
after a blow. So
Yeah.
you just don't know until you get out there.
Yeah, I was on the Michigan coast of Lake Michigan this past August, and we were out one day and it was like 70 on top, and the next day we went out there and it was 52 on
Yeah.
top.
Rolled right over.
It's like one day is
Yeah.
completely different.
Here
Yeah,
we go.
so
Yeah.
live and die by the temperature of the water.
Right.
Yeah.
And typically that's why in the summer, late summer into late July and into August, we end up way offshore because deeper water column, the water's more stable. It takes a lot more to move it
Mhm.
out there. So
What are your returns like when you get towards the end of the season?
they're not what they were as far as the fish coming back to the river,
Mhm.
Tennessee River, my home port. I don't feel, but they're there. It's good. It seems like it's later than it typically used to be, and I'm pretty much done with my fishing season at
Mhm.
that time. My personal belief is, although we pen rear these fish and they're supposed to be imprinting to our tributaries, they all come from that Salmon River hatchery at Altamar, and I feel as though they're
Still
already imprinted,
somewhat imprinted there, yeah.
and then a lot of that's why East End fall runs and they get what they get. It's
Could be right.
Well, sometimes, you know, I mean, we never know what's going on underneath that water, but sometimes I think, like last year, there were so many wild fish in the system. So if 60 or 70 or 80% of your salmon are wild, like
Mhm.
they all know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Their brain is like, they're looking at their watch going, it's time to go. So now 70% of the salmon start swimming east.
Mhm.
The other 30% of the stockfish are like, we're just going to go with
yeah,
that.
follow
Yeah.
They know where they're going, and I'm a little lost, so I'm gonna go with them.
Mhm.
You know, and I think that happens. Whether it does or not, I'll never know. But it seems to be that the wild fish, sometimes if there's a bunch of them, the others will just follow.
Mhm.
You know, maybe they didn't get programmed 100%. They were stocked here, they've been living here, but they're not sure where they want to go. If
Mhm.
you see a bunch of fish going in one direction, let's go there. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say, but I do believe with you know with your theory as well.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll have to have a biologist on sometime,
Oh.
and I'm going to throw that theory at them and see what they say. It'd be interesting.
We've had that discussion with them, and everyone's got their own
Mhm.
feel and take on it. But nonetheless, it's a world class fishery we got here, and
Yeah.
it's my playground. Love it.
People come from all over the world.
Yes.
I live in almost Minnesota on the Wisconsin-Minnesota border, and I drive over here every year to spend a week on Lake Ontario because it's just a cool place to fish. And
Yeah.
I like fishing with the guys that are on the lake, and it's a lot of fun. So you got a jewel here and a gem here, and I think you guys all know that. And appreciate you coming on, Dan.
All
It's
right.
good meeting you.
You too.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna
All
pull
right.
that mic
Thank you.
off
Yes,
of you,
sir.
and then you're out of here.
All right.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
Dan DeGeorge. Appreciate him coming on. And we got another guy coming on the show. Matt, you want to slide over here in this chair?
Sure.
We got another Rochester guy. Give you those headphones. I'm going to pull these ones on, and we'll bring him up on the show here. He looks pretty relaxed.
What's going on,
Captain
guys?
Rickage, how you doing, my
How you
man?
doing, Rick?
Good. How's my volume?
You're good. We can hear you loud and clear.
I can hear you good.
Yeah. You look pretty relaxed. Is the show not open yet?
No, I got about another hour before it opens.
Okay. You were at, what show are you at this weekend?
So we're over in Syracuse at the Central New York Boat Show.
So Rick used to hang out with us here at Greater Niagara. Now he's just on the boat show tour every spring, and we miss him now here at the Greater Niagara show. But he's always kind enough to join us remotely, and just had a Rochester guy on here, and that's where you call home, but that's not your home port where you fish out of generally, right? You do a little fishing there, but tell us about kind of your season and where you're fishing, Rick.
It's kind of funny. So you got Dan just left your studio. When he leaves his marina, I slide in and take his dock. So it's kind of funny how that happened. But yeah, we start our season in Rochester pretty much in December, and we will fish all winter out of Rochester right into April. And then right before our first tournament over in St. Catharines, we're hanging in Rochester, catching whatever Rochester's given up. Most of the time it's brown trout. In the last few years, we've had quite a salmon bite in early April. So that's kind of where we start our season.
And then you head over to the Oak. Tell me about fishing the Oak. Let's talk a little bit about that today. Dan obviously is a Rochester guy, but you move over to the Oak for most of the salmon season. Why do you do that?
We just fell in love with the Oak when we were younger. The fishing was always great. Probably the biggest thing that pulled us into the Oak was the amount of fishing information that was available. There was a page called At the Oak Forever, where there was a couple that would put up fishing reports and listen to the VHF every day and grab reports off the guys chatting on the VHF radio. So it was easy to go there and figure out where to fish when we were just weekend warriors with our father. And then over time, we just kind of fell in love with the Oak. You've got quick access to deep water. You're fishing that tail end of the Niagara River water, which is very fertile. It's just a consistent fishery that's got great fishing from April right through September, October. There's usually salmon around. If there's not salmon, you can always fall back on brown trout and lake trout. And then getting offshore to play with some steelhead is always an option, especially later on in the season.
Yeah, you get out there, you've got that mixed bag fishery, Rick. So tell people a little bit about what kind of your kind of mid-season or your summer program looks like.
Our summer program, we're fishing salmon. So most of the stuff that goes in the water are going to be salmon type colors. On Lake Ontario, it's that green, black, glow, silver. The Oak is unique. We use a lot of gold out of the Oak. You don't tend to see that elsewhere on the lake unless you're dealing with brown trout guys, which are trying to imitate a goby. To me, the bite's usually decent. I would prefer just putting spoons in the water and catching fish. If I have to go and throw some meat rigs in there, we will. And of course, flash and flies. But I'm a huge spoon guy. I've put countless pictures on social media, just piles of spoons at the end of the day. It's just an easy presentation to put in the water, and you can mix it up with various colors, and it kind of looks, everything kind of looks the same. Yeah, so most of our programs are spoons. We will on our divers, we might throw some meat rigs out there. We play with the real stuff and the fake strips as well. But that's our typical program. If I can get away with running spoons, I'm going to run spoons, just because I can use a little bit lighter rod, a little bit lighter line. We don't have these 35 to 40-pound salmon anymore, so getting lighter setups in the water is always a good thing.
You do have some good size though, and the Oak is really known for a place on Lake Ontario where you can go and get a really good salmon. I had a July trip with you, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and we hit a couple of really nice fish while we were out there with you that day. I think we had 2 over 20 pounds. What is it about that area that kind of seems to attract some of those big ones?
I personally think we catch the tail end of that Niagara River water throughout the summer. It's got that green color to it. And then the fact that we've got deep water very close by. We can go 3 or 4 miles and be into 300 foot of water. So when the winds are blowing, when you get into the summertime, July into August, and the winds are blowing that thermocline up and down consistently, if you do have to get to colder water offshore, it's very easy to get there. Where other ports, trying to get to 500-600 feet of water can be quite the haul. So I think that's why the fishing is so consistent there.
Rick, we got one guy that I think he's really into boats. FLX Adventures says he loves your boat too. He was just talking about Dan's boat, but he loves your boat too. He just said the little one. So you actually got a couple of new boats. You had the Trojan, the big boat, and then you changed that, and you just picked up a multi-purpose boat as well. Tell us a little bit about your Crazy Yankee fleet.
Yeah, so we had the 10 meter that you fished on, and then we weren't looking for a new boat, and I think I was at lunch one day at work, and this Tiara popped up, and I knew that the next boat was probably going to be a Tiara if I found the right cabin layout and the right engine package. So this popped up, and next thing I know, I'm driving to Ohio to take a look at it, and everything kind of worked out. Nothing was wrong with the Trojan, and the kid that bought it, or the guy that bought it, absolutely loves it. Him and his parents are running charters at the yoke with it. It's still running strong, and from time to time I do miss it. I did spend 13 seasons with that boat. I knew it very well. But the Tiara is a great boat. Man, it gets up and goes. Those 502, I didn't think anything could drink gas as well as a 454, but a 502 says, hold my beer, watch this, because I've got flow meters on that boat that I put in, and it's hard to get 0.6. Most of the time I'm running combined 0.45 to 0.5 miles per gallon. So it likes its gas, but it's a great platform. The cabin's awesome, and that was a big thing for me because I've got a 5-year-old. He'll be 6 later on this year, and he really enjoys sleeping on the boat. So I look forward to doing more of that in the next few years, hanging out with him and spending the weekends on the boat with the family. So that was a huge thing for me. But the room in the back of that 36 is absolutely amazing. With the fantastic fishing we had this year, getting 4 guys shoulder to shoulder fighting fish, there's still room for my brother and I to slide in there in between the guys and net fish. So the boat offers us a lot of room. It gets up and goes, and it's got a great cabin layout. So we're very happy with that Sierra. And then right behind me over here, I guess, is the Phantom. It's not my Phantom, but it's very similar to the one I've just purchased, and that is the Smoker Craft product. I had a Lund Baron for many years, and it did me very well. But the winters we were having were kind of mild, and my snowmobile wasn't getting much use. So I said, I'm going to sell the snowmobile and buy a boat that I don't feel bad running if it's snowing or raining out, because there's no carpet in it. So sold the snowmobile, bought this boat behind me, and now I'm responsible for the snow and the ice and the cold that's been around for the last month. So I apologize to everybody about that.
Yeah,
but this boat is, what's that?
I could use a little less ice where I've been fishing the last few weeks.
I seen you cracking some ice in the river. I haven't gathered the cojones to try that with this boat yet. Although I did have to break some up at the ramp one day. But yeah, no, it's been cold, and I feel partially responsible for it. But this boat's great. Okay. It's getting me out here, and I love my winter fishing. The fishing's fantastic, and I have the lake to myself, so I don't have to worry about running into people. And like I said, the fishing is fantastic.
Rick, let's talk about that for a little bit. You mentioned your son, 5 going on 6. I've seen a bunch of videos of him ripping around on his 4-wheeler right now. But your dad got you started in this. You still fish with your brother. You got your son coming up. Just talk a little bit about how you've incorporated and just been around family your whole time going through your fishing adventures.
Yeah, family is very important to me. I can explain it. So I have dinner with my in-laws and my parents 4 to 5 times a week. So I like that family atmosphere, and I want my son to be around that. My son absolutely loves the boat. We'll sit in the boat in the garage and hang out. He'll play with different things. It's awesome. But I also don't want to overburden him with my passion. So I try to give it to him a little spurts, so that. So I guess my hope is that he loves it as much as I do. But like I said, I don't want to burn him out on it. So I get him out every so often, and he caught his first bass all by himself this summer, which was like probably one of the top moments of my life, was watching him catch that bass. He thought he had weeds, and I was like, buddy, weeds don't swim sideways. So he loves that. He loves sleeping on the boat. So I'm enjoying watching him grow up. And some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is just, I mean, it's hilarious. And the way these kids' minds think at that age, it's pretty impressive. But I'm having a lot of fun with them. Took him ice fishing for the first time, and I didn't know what to expect. And like, you know, when I go fishing, it's like full throttle. If things aren't perfect, I'm getting angry. You know, I know how I want to do it and how it's supposed to be done. But when I take him, I've got to step back and realize it's more about the experience, not about success, of the success of catching fish and being productive, but just showing him a good time. So we were younger. We didn't have, you know, ice huts and all this fancy ice fishing equipment. We had a homemade sled. My father had an auger that basically had a shovel on it that went in a circle. So we got these little ice balls out of drilling holes in the wall. There are holes in the ice. So we would play bocce on the ice with that stuff. We'd bring a football. So it was about the experience when we went ice fishing. And I tried to make sure that I did something very similar. And it was great that a friend of mine, Tim Scripp, was out there. His son was out there. Once they kind of met, then it just made the experience easier for me because the kids were playing, they're sliding on the ice. We'd run after flags. It was really cool. So it's been fun getting him involved in the outdoors, and he really loves it. He loves his four-wheeler. So I'm looking forward to where that's going to lead. But he loves the boats as well. So I guess what I try to do is I try to just sprinkle in a little bit here, a little bit there. I coached soccer with him last winter for a few weeks. Just try to show him a little bit of everything. And I guess if something sticks or whatever sticks to him, he takes it and is passionate about it like I am about the outdoors and fishing.
Yeah, that's great information for anyone who wants to get their kids involved in fishing and the outdoors. Pretty much everything that Rick just said in the last 3 or 4 minutes, I think, is going to be your playbook for doing that. Matthew Cam chimes in. He's got an attaboy for you. Says, Captain Rick saved a trip for me last year after I donated my probe to the lake. He got me a new probe the same day and was very knowledgeable on the Fishhawk product. So that's a great story, Rick. Appreciate you doing that. And it's no surprise that you did that based on what I know about you. And then just had Mike Ziem stop in, just said, great show. Captain Matt, wealth of knowledge. Sounds like he's gone fishing with you before. So
Yeah, Mike Ziem, he's a shoreline angler on the Niagara River, and you know, I'll see him when I'm in the boat and float by. We'll wave and how you doing? How you doing? And
yeah.
you know, he can help us with what's going on from the shore. A lot of places we can't fish. And, you know, salmon season last year was really tough on the river, but Mike was fishing different areas. He's like, well, there's still some salmon in the river. We're catching them. It's just where you guys can't get them in the boat. So it was good to know that, you know, that there was fish that we weren't seeing. But he's a good guy, and he's a helpful guy as well.
Yeah. Rick, tell me about, you've been to several boat shows, I think, already before. I think you were at one a week or two ago. Tell me about how boat sales are going right now and kind of what the world's doing as far as buying boats these days.
Yeah, this is my third boat show in about 4 weeks, and I can tell you I'm kind of over it. But I'd much rather be where you guys are. The traffic's been decent. I think all dealers have no shortage of inventory, and there's a lot of great deals out there. I think with the inventory, you're getting manufacturers offering rebates and dealers slashing margins. So I think it's a great time for somebody who's in the market for a new boat to come out to one of these boat shows and figure out what they like, what they don't like. There's some very good deals to be had. I think the biggest holdup right now is finance rates, and they're starting to come down a little bit compared to where they were in the last year or two. So we're seeing them slowly come down, and so that's kind of bringing some people around. But they go down a little further, I think it'll be back on as far as buying goes. Market.
Rick, if somebody's thinking about buying a boat, let's say more of a, something in the 20-foot range, something like your smoker craft, what should they really look for when they're looking for a boat to troll on the Great Lakes with, but not, we're not talking Tierra type of stuff. We're talking about like your smoker craft. What are some features and what are some things that people should really be keying in on when they're looking at a boat?
There's a lot of great stuff out there. One of the things, if you are in the market for a brand new boat, is I would go with a reputable company. There's a lot of companies that will come and go over the years, but the Smoker family is still a family-owned company. They've got an amazing line of products. When you get into that top line, that top brand, you're going to get a good build quality. You're going to get a company that stands behind their product. For me, I guess when it comes down to what kind of boat somebody wants, it really comes down to how they fish. And what I've found selling fish boats is everybody fishes differently, even if they fish for the same exact fish you do. So rather than me telling them how their boat needs to be or what they need in their boat, I try to listen to what they want or how they're going to use the boat. That's really the biggest thing. So all these boats have these little nuances that are different. And that's why these boat shows are a great place to come and look at these boats, because you can see, you can compare models side by side, you can compare brands side by side, and really figure out what fits your style of fishing.
Tell me a little bit. One of the things I'm seeing a lot, Rick, are the consoles getting pushed up further and further up to the front of the boat. What are the advantages to doing that, and are there any disadvantages to doing that?
Yeah, you're seeing that, and it's great because it gives you a lot more room in the back of the boat if you are into the trolling aspect of fishing. But if you're a caster, and with the new live sonar that's out there, I don't know if you're going to continue to see that, because you're going to get a lot of guys that are going to sit there on their trolling motor with a dedicated pole for their live imaging, and they're going to be able to catch a lot of the fish that we catch trolling that were never able to be targeted in the past. You got guys out there in open water, out to 100 foot of water, casting and being successful on salmon. Same thing with lake trout in the Great Lakes and brown trout. And I don't know how this is going to play out in the future. This could get this could get interesting, because you've got these guys out there with these big boats with these gigantic trolling spreads, especially out here when they're running 5 and 6 rods on a planer board on each side, and then you've got these smaller boat guys with their live sonar that are basically out there hopping around, and they're actually hunting and sniping single fish, and they're getting good enough where they can point out or pick out the bigger fish in that school or in that water. So you're going to have these guys out there spot locked in the middle of the lake with these big boats trolling through. So it's going to get interesting in the future. But yeah, for my style of fishing, most of my customers love to troll, or they don't know how to fish. They come out with us and we're trolling. It's easy to get them hooked up on fish with a bunch of rods in the water. So I prefer the console a little forward, so I have more trolling room. And that's kind of why you're seeing a lot of guys go to that in the Great Lakes. I know Lake Erie's been real popular with some of the heavy gauge aluminum stuff. It's starting to catch on here in Lake Ontario, and that's why we brought the Smokercraft Phantom line in up, because it has that same build. It used to be a West Coast style company with that heavy gauge aluminum welded boat. They brought it in-house in Indiana, and now because we don't have to pay the shipping from Indiana to Washington, we can kind of cut down on the freight and get these boats out to the public a little bit cheaper than if it would have stayed over on the West Coast. But yeah, if you're looking for a trolling boat, there's a lot of options in the new heavy gauge aluminum welded stuff.
Rick, what should people look at if, let's say I want to buy a smoker craft like what you have, and I'm gonna go fishing on Lake Ontario? And I think the question that a lot of people have, and you probably get this all the time, is how big a motor should I put on the back of this thing? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's certain models that you can get away with running a little bit less than max horsepower on. Our 21-foot Mariners, which are it's a brand new model that took over for the 21 Fishmaster. It's got the Generation 2 hull underneath it. It maxes out at a 250, but with a 200 horsepower engine, 2 people with a bimini up and some gear, you can get 50 miles an hour out of that boat. A 250 is going to push that into the mid 50s. So there's some boats where you can get away with not maxing out the horsepower, which will save you some money when you go to buy a boat. On my Phantom, I maxed out the horsepower. That maxed out at 175. So that you find on some of these heavy gauge aluminum boats, you don't have the flotation you would in the Mariner or the Fishmaster, some of these other light gauge aluminum boats. So you can't get as big a horsepower on that boat. But with the 175 and that Phantom, that boat with myself, gear, and a load of gas, I can do mid 40s very easily. And I'm still working on propping on that boat, so I think I can do a little better. But you don't always have to go maximum horsepower on your 18-foot boats. A 150 is a great option. When you get into the 19 and 20-foot boats, 175 to 200 will push it quite well. So you don't always have to. I know the big craze nowadays in the glass market is, how can we get the biggest motor on the back of this boat? They're getting 350 and 400 horsepower outboards in the back of these boats. And I've talked to a few people, and you're starting to get issues on the transom because you're hanging all this weight on the back of a 21 or a 22-foot boat. So, those 150 to 200 horsepower engines have been around forever. They've been on these boats forever. They're great motor options, great horsepower options.
Rick, big thanks for hanging out with us here today. I know you got other things to do. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't ask you about?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. I definitely miss being there. Hopefully they'll change the dates in the upcoming years where I can make it back to that show, because that's really my cup of tea, is hanging out with other fishermen. So look forward to seeing Matt this spring here in a few months when I get up to the bar. And thanks for all you guys do, and I hope you guys are having a good time there. Don't drink too much.
We're gonna have a nice dinner tonight.
You gotta watch out. There's a superhero there that might get you into some trouble, so you got to be careful.
Yeah. Yep. That can happen. That can happen. Yeah. He's Captain Rick Hajecki from Krenzer Marine and from Crazy Yankee Sport Fishing. Thanks so much for joining us, Rick.
See you in the spring.
See you guys.